till I become it all.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the next episode of Einstein Mother's Quest to Solve the $50 Trillion Riddle. Hello, I'm Arnold, GB Arnold, and I will be your guide and host on this epic journey. The journey of discovery and intrigue and of triumph and failure. But ultimately, this is a story of a great transformation. In episode 1, we learned the origin of the $50 trillion riddle. If you remember, it was on February 11th. On February 11th, 2012, C.J. Haynes shared the riddle with me. This was the same riddle that Anadarko Petroleum had contributed $1 million to the United Way to solve. C.J. shared the riddle with me because she thought that the vision I had for a children's wellness and education center could contribute to the solution. And in case you forgot, here's the riddle. This is the $50 trillion riddle that Anadarko Petroleum was asking. Why are children getting sicker and sicker and sicker at younger and younger ages with the chronic diseases that were once reserved for the elderly? It was this single question that inspired Einstein Mother's 11-year and 70,000-hour quest to solve what I'm calling the Audacious challenge. You may remember in episode 2, we debuted Einstein Mother Story Corner. This is the place where magical journeys begin. We also discovered the secret, we also discovered Einstein Mother's 3 story secrets and the mantra to solve any riddle. We also discovered the call that changed the course of my life and was the catalyst to the first of 2 journeys. This was the journey to save my father from the ravages of chronic disease. We also learned that while diet and nutrition are important, alone they are not enough to actually reverse the symptoms of late-stage chronic disease. And lastly, we discovered the first of 5 master keys required to solve the $50 trillion riddle. Okay, now that we're all caught up, now that we're here in the Einstein Mother Story Corner, I have the magical vest donned, and the scene for episode 3 is now set. Let us begin. Welcome to Einstein Mother Story Corner, the place where magical journeys begin. But before we begin, it's time for the 3 story secrets and the mantra to unravel any and all riddles. Let's start with number 1. First step is you have to unplug. Unplug from all distractions and be here now. Story secret number 2. Tune in. Tune in to the resonance of your beating heart. Tune in and be love now. Number 3 is to turn on. Turn on your curious mind and be curious now. So putting it all together, unplug and be here. Tune in to love and be curious now. As you can tell, this mantra is happening in real time. So if you have any recommendations, suggestions, please leave them in the comment. Okay, who's ready for the story to begin besides me? We've got hours to go before we sleep, so let's get started. You may recall that after my father died, I returned to Houston, and I continued my massage and coaching practice, but I have to admit, I felt a little defeated. I had lost my focus, I had lost my enthusiasm, and I just got caught up in the daily grind of life. going to work, hanging out with friends. Otherwise, I was going nowhere fast. And that's when a good friend of mine, Trish Millard, one of my all-time favorite friends, introduced me to Linda Coleman. It turned out Linda Coleman was a guide of all guides. She was, in fact, a godsend. And she arrived at my life during a very difficult time. And I credit her for introducing me to the next guide in my life that had the greatest and perhaps the most profound influence of any guide to date. The guide that Linda introduced me to was named Jen. And over the next year and a half, Jen and I developed a relationship. One thing led to another, and she and I got married on 9/11, 1999. And for those of you that are taking notes, you may recall that 9/11, 1999 was the day that the seed that was planted at the end of episode number 2 began to show signs of life. Okay, let's fast forward to February 11th, 2002. Yes, another February 11th. This is the day that Jennifer introduced me to the world of Bikram's yoga. And look, I was reluctant at first, but after my first class, I could immediately see the potential benefit and the health benefits that this practice could offer. But what happened next was truly a miracle. It was my 6th class in 2 short weeks. And a chronic neck injury that I had from an auto accident 2 years earlier, it disappeared. It disappeared and never returned again. To say that I was blown away would be an absolute understatement, because in that moment I knew that Bikram yoga was a missing piece to the puzzle that I had been searching for. Bikram yoga had the power to heal those afflicted with chronic injuries and disease. 7 months later, I landed in Bikram's grueling 9-week teacher's training program. And all I can say is, holy moly, buckle up, because the next leg of the journey is going to be a bit of a wild ride. It was during teacher's training that I became Bikram's personal massage therapist, of course, right? And often before he would teach class, he would summon me into his office. I would give him a 30, 45-minute hour massage, and then he would go teach class. So I got to see a side of Bikram that very few students got to see. And despite what you may have heard about Bikram Choudhury or what opinions you may hold about him, first of all, I've heard them all. And I probably have held most of the same opinions about the man. Look, I know who he is. And it's not always been fun. But just so that we're clear, Bikram was and is and always will be the gangster of yoga. And anyone who was paying attention, they knew, I knew, we all knew who he was. Bikram could be charismatic in one moment, and in the very next moment, he could be the devil. Really, actually the devil. And it was my observation that most people who spent time in his presence either wanted to be with him or wanted to be like him. I mean, that was just the magnetism that this, bad boy yoga guy, yoga guru, had on people. But the chaos of Bikram's world, in that chaos, I think it's difficult to forget his ultimate teaching, which can be summed up in 6 words. And here they are. Bikram's ultimate teaching was, let no man steal your peace. That was it. This is Bikram's ultimate teaching. But make no mistake. As soon as those words left his mouth, he would turn into the devil and would do everything within his power to steal your peace. I remember it was 6 weeks into the training program, and Bikram started spewing the foulest, most sexist dialogue I've ever heard. I was personally offended for the women in the room. In fact, it was so bad, many of the female students became physically ill and actually had to leave the room. It was that bad. And I remember after class, fellow students would come up to me and ask, Arnie, what just happened? Why are we here? Why are we listening to this guy? And my reply was simple. I'm here to endure whatever is necessary to become a certified teacher, because that was the path to owning a studio. And make no bones about it, my eye was fixed on that prize. I was committed to being a studio owner. And there was nothing that Bikram or anybody else could do that would deter me from obtaining my goal. Why? Well, it's simple. Because I knew that Bikram's yoga had the power to heal others. It healed me, and I saw its transformative work on the lives of many people, fellow students, while I was taking Bikram yoga. And that was my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal from the very beginning was to save others from pain, suffering, and misery, ever since I got the call from my mom to come heal my father. Anyway, Bikram yoga training was a milestone in my life, and I've used it often to get me through difficult times. My mantra would be, if I can make it through Bikram's yoga, there ain't nothing I can't do. And over my life, I've had many sort of key milestone moments, and I've used them in similar fashions, like the time, my time on a nuclear-powered submarine. My mantra would be, if I can make it through 4 years on a nuclear-powered submarine, there's nothing I can do. Or the time I was working in Berlin, Germany for the Department of Defense, and putting in 120 hours, weeks on end. I would say, look, if I can do that kind of work, there's no job that's too big for me to accomplish. But my all-time favorite mantra was, if I can make it through an 11-day silent meditative retreat, there is absolutely nothing I can't do. Anyone here ever sat through a Vipassana course? I don't know about you, but personally, it was one of the most challenging experiences of my life. Why? Because through Vipassana, I discovered the depth of my insanity and the breadth of my misery. I was insane and miserable. But here is the good news. Vipassana and Tibetan mind training is a path to liberation. It's one way that we can get to a place of peace. And I share these milestones with you not to impress anyone, but rather to share some of my life experiences and the experiences that I believe have prepared me for this epic quest, a quest I've been on for 11 years. But I digress. Let's get back to the story. Let me figure out where I was. Here we go. After teacher training, I came back, and it was 3 long years of obsessively planning and designing. I mean, every moment for hours on end, I would be designing, envisioning what the future studio would look like. And then it happened. Bikram Yoga at the Woodlands was born on October 5th, 2003. Jen and I had built the Taj Mahal of Bikram Yoga studios, and it was beautiful. It featured the latest air purification technology. It had a state-of-the-art water filtration system. It had first-class shower facilities, steam rooms. We offered a wide range of spa services. No expense was spared. And we enjoyed the notoriety of having this beautiful studio. People celebrated us for the place that we had built, and our students loved it. But after we got this thing built, Jen and I found ourselves at the starting gate of a new adventure, but a starting gate that would be challenging. But we had the perfect partnership. I was the front of the house guy. Jen helped to manage the back of the house, and so together we were able to just make it happen. And after a number of years and lots of hard work and dedication, we ultimately managed to build a thriving yoga community in the Woodlands. I mean, it was truly an amazing place and one of the highlights of my life. But look, as beautiful as the studio was on the outside, it was the magic inside the classroom that really mattered. It was really a dream come true. I was watching, observing miracles happen on a regular and daily basis. Our students' lives were being changed. It was a testament to the power of hot yoga, testament the power of Bikram's yoga. Let's fast forward to 2009. This was 6 years into our Bikram yoga experiment, and we were in the kind of outer inner circle in the Bikram world, and knew him personally. But Bikram decided to franchise all the existing studios in America, and it turned out that decision was the beginning of the end of Bikram yoga as we know it. And at the time, there was lots of drama and chaos in Bikram's world. And after long consideration, on December 31st, 2010, Jen and I decided to officially divorce from Bikram Yoga World Headquarters. And on January 1st, I love it, 1/1/2011, we officially launched Express Hot Yoga in the Woodlands. Arguably, a new and improved version of Bikram Yoga in every way. It was a fusion of Raja, mind yoga, and Hatha yoga, physical yoga. And we condensed the 90-minute practice into a 50-minute routine. What we discovered, the shorter format allowed more people to practice more often. And it was not the length of the practice, it was the frequency of practice that actually mattered most. So if you could practice 5 days a week for 50 minutes, less time than 3 times at 90 minutes. But here's one of the features about Express Hot Yoga that I think is worth mentioning because it was inspired by my father. It was the emphasis that we placed on breathing techniques. And sadly, I oftentimes think how my father could have benefited from this practice and through these breathing techniques. If I only had known then what I know now, I believe I could have had a greater impact on his health. So Jen and I started a new teacher training program. I began to contemplate how to scale the business. And before long, we found our first partner, Memo Garza. And he, bright, happy guy. And he's like, yes, I'm in. I want to do this. And so we opened up, and exactly 12 months later, we opened up, January 1st, 2012, we opened Express Hot Yoga 2. And it was born in the back of the Woodlands, and it was really the next big milestone in the evolution, at least of my yoga journey. And it should be noted that over the 10 years that was in business, thousands of students benefited from the healing power of hot yoga. And that leads me to the second master key that was discovered. And it was this idea of mindful movement matters. It was the key to unlock unlimited energy. Welcome to your mitochondria. There'll be a lot more to this conversation later. But for now, in the fall of 2011, I hit an existential crisis. I realized that the yoga model that I had spent so much time developing was broken. The business model had a fatal flaw that I could not resolve. And look, I'm going to confess, and this is painful. I had made a number of miscalculations previously, like building the Taj Mahal of Bikram Yoga studios using the wrong demographics. The Woodlands is not Houston. The studio was too big. It was way too expensive. And I built the Taj Mahal on somebody else's property in the Woodlands Mall, which is a great location, lots of parking, but it was a mistake. And it's tough to admit, but in hindsight, I made some decisions that were both arrogant and foolish, for which I regret. But the single greatest challenge that I could not figure out was, how do I pay every employee a livable wage? Couldn't figure it out. And I knew that yoga was an important piece of the riddle, but I couldn't figure out. There had to be something more. There was a piece missing to this riddle. So I began to look for the next piece, and I then came across a movie that had a profound effect on my life. It was Dirt, the movie, and it turned out that Dirt pointed me back to the earth, to re-examine, to think about food through a new lens and ask new and I think better questions like, what if Hippocrates was right? What if food is our medicine? And what if all diseases do in fact begin in the gut? What if the food that we're eating was the underlying root causes of chronic disease? And what if we could cultivate soil biology that could produce more nutrient-dense, rich foods? And that's when I discovered the world of permaculture and regenerative agriculture. And that set me on the next path to begin the work on a vision of creating an off-the-grid children's wellness and education village. And in fact, many of you know, we had already chosen a site at the back of the Woodlands. This was a visionary program aimed at providing children with hands-on life science experience, teaching them how to create nurturing soil biology, cultivating nutrient-rich and dense foods, how to cultivate food, harvest it, prepare it, and then serve it up. And ultimately instilling the knowledge of sustainable cycles. Along my journey, I've encountered a number of guides who've illuminated my path, and it's the next episode I will begin to honor all of them. But it was a bright, shining light of C.J. Haynes, who on February 11th, 2012, she's the one who gets credit for sharing the riddle with me. And this riddle would change the trajectory of my life. And it set me on this lifelong quest to solve what I now call the Audacious challenge. And then, to my surprise, 4 months after learning the riddle, on June 6th, it was the last day that Venus had transited across the sun, which won't happen again, by the way, until December 10th, 2117. So a few years from now, 104, but who's counting? So this event happened, and in fact, this event was actually forecasted by Eric Francis's 2011 Sagittarian birthday reading. And it was an event that I didn't think could or would happen. The reading foretold the end of my relationship with Jen, and that it was going to happen on June 6th. So when the June 6th was coming to an end, I thought, nope, it's not going to happen. It's coming to an end. And then it did. In fact, it was at 10:35 p.m. on June 6th that I jumped. I took the red pill. I metaphorically burned my boat and started on this journey. I decided to give Jen the yoga studio and that I would follow this next and new path. Of course, there's much, much more to the story. But, and this concludes the first 18 years of my journey to end chronic disease. But in that moment, it was also the beginning of the next 11 years, the beginning of the second journey, and the discovery of the missing master keys to the $50 trillion riddle. Today, I invite you to join me on this discovery as we unravel the mysteries of healing, as we confront chronic disease head on, and as we strive to create a brighter, healthier future for everyone, but starting with the youngest among us, our children, those who have to solve the problems of tomorrow. So together, let's dare to dream. Let's dare greatly to ignite the transformative power that is within each of us to do more. Let's jump in the arena together, head first, to solve humanity's most audacious challenges. But I need your support. I've done the work. I now invite you to join me, and it starts by simply sharing this video with everyone you know. But don't just share it. Watch the videos, and then feed the algorithms by leaving comments, because we all know someone who's struggling. And we all know people who are struggling from chronic disease. But together, if we join forces, we can make a difference in their lives. Depending on when you see this, I'll also invite you to Einstein Mother's live countdown party to the Audacious Challenge, June 17th, Saturday at 8:35 p.m. Central Standard Time. I hope this is going to be an unforgettable event. I hope it's going to be fun. I hope we get to laugh together, maybe even cry together. but it's the countdown and the celebration of the Audacious challenge ahead. So don't miss this opportunity. Get your free ticket today. Invite everybody that you know. And again, the virtual seats are limited, and they're available on a first-come, first-served basis. And again, it is with deep, heartfelt gratitude. I thank each and every one of you for being a part of this incredible journey. Thank you. Your questions and comments are greatly appreciated. In fact, they're essential to feed the algorithm. So leave multiple comments on each and every video. And thank you, and thank you. And until next time, stay inspired. Stay healthy. And keep aspiring for a world of healthy, happy children. I believe it's the best and perhaps only hope for all of humanity. Until next time.
I'll keep